To change the rope spool on your Allegro 2, you'll need a 7/16 combination wrench. Hi, my name is Kayleen and I'm here in the BB Garage to show you how to swap out your Allegro 2 rope spools. Now to do this, you're going to need a soft surface or a yoga mat so that when we turn your Allegro 2 on its side, you don't scratch the floor or your foot bar. So let's attach all the springs. Bring the foot bar into an upright position, totally vertical. And then to flip the reformer, make sure you grab onto the frame and not the foot bar. Great. All right, so if you have a cover on, let's remove the cover. And now we're ready to start working on our spools. I recommend starting with the spool closest to the floor so that when we take the hardware off, it doesn't fall all over the place. And then we can move on to the spool that's higher. So first of all, we're going to allow the rope that's attached to this spool to retract as much as it can. So I'm going to go ahead, I've unattached the loop over here, and I'm going to pull the lever so that this spool now has as much rope on it as it can. And if I look up at the riser, the loop is all the way up in the riser here, and it can't go any further. Now, I'm going to let the lever go and start to remove the rope here. And when you remove the rope from the spool, it's important to keep the spool still. So let's start by pulling the end of the rope out from inside, and then unthread it from the spool. And now we can pull it out just like this. So we're noticing that when we start the rope here, the rope goes right along the wood of the carriage and comes out the other side. That's going to be important when we rethread this rope. Okay. Now I'm going to carefully let the spool unwind, just like that. Okay, so now it's slack, and now we can remove this nut. Your kit comes with this wrench, so that's really nice. And we're going to go lefty-loosey to remove the nylock nut. We're going to save this nut here and this washer because we'll need it for our replacement spool. And then we'll carefully remove this spool. Underneath here, there is a washer. We're going to leave the washer on this long threaded rod. Now, inside your spool, there's a silver axle, and I'm going to remove this because we need to put it in our new spool. Okay. Now I'm going to take my old spool and put it off to the side so it doesn't get mixed up. And I want to bring up this really important point here. You'll see here that this is marked with a D, a letter D. That stands for driver's side. The other spool is going to be marked passenger side. So it's important that you match the spool that you remove to the spool that you're putting on. No. It's important that you match the spool you're putting on to the one that you removed. So if you aren't sure, know that the side that has this spring is the driver's side. So everything, if this is their midline, this side is the driver's side. The other side without the spring is the passenger side. Okay, now we're going to take our spool. This is the new one, marked D, because we're on the side with the spring, and insert the axle into the new spool. So we're going to go in from the black side, and slide in with the slot. You can see the slot on the end of this axle. That goes in first. So I'm just going to put it in just like that. And you'll notice that it probably doesn't go in all the way here. So if we flip around, okay, you'll be able to see that, hey, there's a spring in there, and it's bent in such a way that it's preventing the axle from going all the way. So I'm going to rotate the axle until the slot lines up with the bend in the spring, and then, oh, this one's giving me a little trouble. I'm just going to, there we go. It should slide right in. Okay, so this one is needs a little bit of maneuvering here. There we go. So it should end up looking like that. And I sort of had to make the inner spiral of the spring a little bit bigger to fit around the axle. But you'll see here that the bent end of the spring is in the slot of the axle. Okay, and now it's flush with the end. Now I'm going to slide this spool back on the threaded rod with the white part facing the metal rail of the carriage. Okay, and then using our wrench, we will replace the washer and the nut that we removed from the original spool and secure it, righty-tighty. Okay, so it does not need to be really tight. I noticed as soon as there was tension and I stopped, and this still spins a little bit. Now, this is not loaded here, and you want to be sure that we spin it to preload it in the correct direction. Okay, so I'm not turning it until I determine which direction is the correct way. So remember in the beginning we talked about where the rope is going to go. The rope is going to go this way. Okay, it's going to follow the wood of the carriage and come around and wrap around this way. So if I'm looking here, this happens to be clockwise. Okay, so that's the way the rope is going to thread on. However, to preload this, we need to go in the opposite way. So if I put my hand back here, I'm going to grab onto the spool and pull this way, pull towards the head end. And that's how I know that's the right direction. Now I'm going to continue that pull for about one turn. Okay, maybe a turn and a half, but one turn is plenty. Now holding that tension on the spring and on the spool, we're going to rethread the rope. After a few turns, the friction of the rope might hold the spool in place, but I'm going to keep hanging on just in case. Yep, there we go. All right. Now we've got about 5 inches or so left. We're going to notice that there are 2 sets of 3 holes on the end of this spool. I'm going to choose whatever side is closer to me when I still have about 5 inches of rope showing. So first of all, we're going to take the rope through the first hole and pull it up, and then go down through the second hole, and then up through the third hole. And then we can tuck this away in the rope, just like that, or in the spool, sorry, that's in the spool. Now that we've got the rope all wrapped around the spool, we're going to test it. So I'm going to use the lever here and pull the rope. And we see that the rope and the spool turns here. If I let go of the lever, my rope should stay in place. This should all be very neat and tight. So here's our test. We put the rope at the length that we want it. It's got some slack in it. And if we press the lever down, it should automatically retract the rope and come into tension. Okay? So you can do that a few times, pulling and resetting the length just to make sure that everything is in working order and you don't have to go back and retension the spool. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole procedure for the other spool. You can do it with the reformer flipped in the same direction as before. Just one note about the direction of the winding here. So again, we notice that the rope goes in towards the back of the spool here, so right up against the wood of the carriage. So when we tension this spring, you want to be sure that you're tensioning it by pulling towards these cam cleats. So my hand is up against the carriage and you pull towards the cam cleats here, okay? If you go the other way and you try and tension your spring in the direction of the rope, you can break the spring and then you have to get a whole new spool. So be sure and avoid that. Okay, once you've done both spools, you can flip the carriage over or flip the reformer over and you're good to go. Thanks for joining me today in the BB Garage. If you need more videos like this one, you can check them out at pilates.com/bbgarage. I'll see you there.